free heart, refreshing souls are set apart. Come to the well, receive his light, living water, endless life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Well and Grace. I'm your host, Regina Bartlett, and tonight I am delighted to welcome Tracee Lydia Garner, a best-selling author, dynamic speaker, and dedicated writing coach. With over 18 books to her name, Tracee's stories masterfully blend romance and suspense, featuring diverse characters who triumph over adversity. Beyond her fiction, she's a passionate advocate for inclusivity and empowerment, particularly for individuals with disabilities. You can explore her work and learn more at traceegarner.com. Tracee, welcome to the show. It is a joy to have you with us today.
Thank you, Regina. It's a joy to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
So, I have so many things I want to learn from you. So, why don't you first start off by telling us a little bit about who you are and how you got into writing?
Sure. My name's Tracee Lydia Garner. As you mentioned, I am a Virginia native, which is a rarity. A lot of transient people here in the DMV area, but I'm still here. I love it. I love Virginia. I love the Washington metropolitan area. It provides a lot of fodder for my writing, for my romantic suspense. I'm up to 21 books now. Number 21 is coming out in probably another couple months, although I've been saying that for a minute. So I've been working hard on my next book, but I use a wheelchair and I have muscular dystrophy. Not, I'm a Jerry's kid. That's all people really know about muscular dystrophy association, but it is a degenerative disease that affects your muscles. And so I walked until I was about 10 years old and then had to start using a wheelchair full time since elementary school. But I just love writing. I love talking, period. But I love writing. How I started was that I was depressed in pursuing my academics, my math, or yes, it should be a laugh, but Freudian slip. So my math for liberal arts degree was really, really difficult. And I just remember writing a story on the back of a piece of notebook paper where I couldn't solve the problem that my teacher was trying to tell me how to figure out to solve. And I just kind of escaped and just kind of left the building, left the classroom completely into my own world that where everything worked out and everything went happily. So I entered my writing into a contest and I won, and that just changed my life. So that's kind of where I began. And 20 plus books later, and 24 years later, my first book and my book deal was when I was 24 years old. So that was
Wow.
20 something years ago, and I still just just think about it. One thing can change your life, and they really mean it because I've been talking about it for the last 20 plus years because it was just such a moment of validation and love and finding my voice and myself.
Now, you used a
You,
term, and I'd like you to kind of expand on it a little bit. You said where everything worked out.
Mhm.
Describe what you mean by that.
Well, I was in, reality where things don't work out. I write romantic suspense. I also write self-help books, and I've written a book about disability too. I write nonfiction, but so much was going wrong in my life as a 20 something year old. I was kind of like it. I felt like it in high school. And then you get to college and you're like, this is like a bigger pool of fish. So you're not it. You're in, like, I don't know, like the barracks or something. If you're on a ship, you're on the lower level of the floor and you just didn't have the right supports. So that was going wrong. I took math for liberal arts twice, which is ridiculous. I haven't used that math since. And especially for creative types, like, it's just so hard. And then also being rejected. I was talking to someone, seeing them at the time, and I told them that I use a wheelchair, and they're like, my grandma uses a wheelchair. And I'm like, okay, that's nice, but not quite what I was going for. So
Wow.
just when things are going wrong and so those things hurt. I was just having such hurt that I wanted to create a world. It was a way for me to escape and it was a way for me to cope. And it brought me so much joy. I had no idea that writing, I've always written, like, I mostly wrote poetry and even had a poem in my campus literary magazine at the time, published. And then I just started going deeper into this other world where I was in control. I mean, that's the thing. Control. You want control over your life. You want control over the things. So when you write fiction, it's so fun to kind of play, little G God in your own world. And the other thing is that by winning the contest, that said, "Oh, this is really good," and I didn't have to show my disability. As soon as
Mm,
if I had to went to them first, and that's why I love writing because it's an opportunity for what you are creating and what you're doing to stand on its own merit. So there's no judgment. Only the writing gets to go before me, and many people don't even know I have a disability until they see me. They're like, "Oh, you wrote that? That's you?" Like, "Yeah, that's me." And it's unexpected. It's a surprise. But winning the contest really told me other people like this. This is pretty good, and we want to publish it. So it's just that validation. Every child, I wasn't a child, I was 20 something, but in reality, still a little bit of
still
a
young.
young person and developing needs. I think that's why people err so much in their life. It's just because they don't have the encouragement that, oh, this is what you're good at. And it's so hard to find that. I'm so fortunate. I count it all joy that I found that at such a young age. And I continue, even through all my careers and all my 9 to 5 regular full time employment jobs, always come back to my writing to help me process, the things that happen to me and even things that I don't like, even things I don't understand. And I use that writing to just kind of write a different ending,
Hmm,
write a better ending, a more soothing ending to the things, to the woes of life.
I like that. I also find it, so comforting. It must have been really great for you because I think a lot of times, especially as women, we have a tendency
Mm,
to, and this is not all women,
how-
but we have a
yeah, of course.
tendency to not, we almost
Yeah, well,
require external validation. Like, I could think my writing's good,
right.
but I would never be like, "My writing's amazing." But when other people read it and then you kinda get that extra push, like, "I can
Yes.
actually do this," you know? And
Mhm,
so to
mhm.
have that happen at 24, what a gift that you were able to immediately see, like, "Oh my goodness, not only do I love this, other
Mhm.
people love it too." And that's a
Right, right.
huge, huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important.
So what was a pivotal moment when you were like, "Okay, so we got now that's a pretty big pivotal moment getting, winning a
Mhm.
contest, getting published." When you decided to continue writing and
Mhm.
realize you're not like a one-trick pony out here, like you can actually do this,
Yeah.
what was a pivotal moment for you to continue?
Mhm.
Was it having people read your work? Was it personal satisfaction of always, coming up with new ideas and having that work out? Like, what was the thing that just kept pushing you forward to create more and
Mhm.
more?
Yeah, really, God gave me more ideas. I always really believe that I'm writing in tandem with God. Something he'll tell me to put in the story. I'm like, why should I put that? What is that gonna do? And then later at the end, I'm like, oh my God, that's why I put that in there. So I did get another 2 book deal after I got my foot in the door. One of the prizes was to get a trip to New York. So they paid for my parents and I to take the train to New York, and because I don't fly, obviously, because of my disability, but I was still flying a little bit back then. But I don't fly much anymore, just because of the airline issues and busting up your wheelchair and stuff like
Oh my
that.
goodness, it's
So we got a
unreal.
trip to New York. Yeah, it's crazy. Trip to New York and an advance, a monetary advance. And I also got to go to the New York offices to meet the editors. And here I was in this big, like high rise building, in New York. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. So I think that one of the things is just sticking with it. Like I wrote more books after that. Even the book that I won the contest was a novella. And so I really didn't know anything about the mechanics of good storytelling. I just kind of did research and I continued. And so I was able to, I don't think that if I hadn't had the contest win, that I would have gotten a book deal like cold turkey, without them seeing, oh, wait, here's something that we like. And, we'll give her another contract or another deal. But striking while hot, that's the thing that I took away is that I didn't wait a year and think, oh, I want a contest. People that leave American Idol, they need to be, making some connections,
Yeah.
and be like, I still want to sing, even though I'm not the winner. Right. And you can't just leave that platform and not, borrow some money, go make a demo, go put something out there, put it on Spotify. Now there's so many more easier ways to get yourself out there. But, even 10, 15 years ago, people weren't self-publishing like they are now, charting their own course, releasing a CD and having it go viral. We just have so many more mediums to reach people and to build a fan base. So I think that just capitalizing on my contest win, networking, which I'm a terrible networker, but I just meet one person who can kind of give you a leg up and say, okay, yeah, come on and submit something else and we'll see, if we can do something with it. So you have to strike while hot. You got to make connections, even if it's just one person. And I think that made the difference. If I'd have just took my contest win and been like, oh, this is great. I'll just sit on this for, the next 24 years, that would have done me a disservice.
Amen. Now, you had mentioned that God had asked you to put something in one of your novels. So, as you know, Well and Grace is a Christian women's podcast. So, why don't you tell me a
Mhm.
little bit about your relationship with Christ? If you were, if you grew up in the church, if it was something that you had experienced after. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about your faith journey and then how that translates a little bit more into your work?
Sure. My dad was an ordained minister at 20 years old. So he was already a minister when I got here. My mom sung in the choir. They were traditional first lady and pastor and first lady. And my dad pastored a small church for 27 years before he passed away in 2011. So I've always been in church, always been around church people, was always, not like first daughter or something like that, but at least in a small town, in that little microcosm of being kind of like, the child, me and my brother, my older brother, of the parents. So I've always had my faith. My parents instilled that in me. Even, being diagnosed with my disability, I can't even remember, them ever treating me differently. I don't even remember. I remember one doctor telling my mom, it's so funny because my mom tells this story all the time that the doctor told my mom at an appointment that my hands would always have trouble. Like I would not have the dexterity and the things to be able to write. Like she said that, like she will have trouble writing, and yes, my hands are weaker now that I'm 40 plus, but I've always been able to write. I love making to-do lists and I type like 90 words a minute. So for her to say that and my parents being like, oh, okay, well, whatever you say, lady, like they didn't say that, but I just got this kind of, we'll be the judge of that. You don't know, everything. And that's the thing too that I tell parents of young children with special needs, disabilities, whatever, people are calling it nowadays, doesn't really matter. It's the same, is that doctors are practicing, right? They're practicing, they're going around making prognosis. I haven't met a single doctor that told me about another patient being a success story and being a rarity. Like they're never encouraging most of the time. Like you are the first encouraging thing they've ever seen. And it's like, I'm sure you've seen more. You should actually, tell more stories to patients about other patients. You
Yeah.
don't have to name them, but they're just never encouraging. So every time you go there, and every time I go to the hospital or go to the doctor, I'm just like have to like prepare myself and give myself a pep talk, and go treat myself afterwards. Like I got through that. That was good. Okay. Now let me go and prove them wrong. So
Mm.
I think my parents are such a big influence. Always having faith, always believing in me. I always joke with my mom that like, you're always lying to me. You have to be a parent. You have to lie a lot because you tell them, "Oh, that's so good. That's wonderful. You did a good job." And it's like, "Yo, you did it. That time you did something. You didn't do a good job. Just lie to me and tell me that I did a good job and just build confidence, right?" So I'm not currently a parent. That's probably why I like have to lie a lot. Like, "Oh, that's so good. What is this? Is this a dinosaur? No, it's a unicorn. Oh, I missed a horn." Like it's just, it's just on and on. But you need that. And that has been important, and they believe in you, and that is key. I've had such wonderful support from my mom, my dad, and my only brother that that is the key. You need support and you have to have your own belief in God. And I will say about the contest, I was actually crying one night after getting like another bad grade on my um, probably my math test. I remember crying and I remember scrolling the internet and seeing something. It said, "Do you have what it takes to become a writer?" And that was the announcement for the contest. And my tears dried up, and I actually felt like God saying, "Stop crying. This is for you." So I've always believed that whatever He has for you is for you. But I really think the contest spoke to me. Like in my head, I always believed I would win, actually winning was like, wow, this is really it. But because the contest spoke to me, because God, I felt, was trying to help me stop crying, he's like, do this, get it ready. And it was in record time. I didn't have a manuscript at the time I saw the contest. I just
Wow.
wrote as much as I could every single day. And thank God it was a novella because that was shorter to begin with, right? It was just such a divine series of events at your wit's end. And then this thing that you see, and it's like, oh, you can do this. And I actually sent in the package back then, 20 plus years ago. They were still sending manuscripts, not like now where you just send an attachment. But
Right.
I remember putting the package together. I dated the cover letter, my birthday, which was October 15th. And I just prayed over the package and we took it to the post office. And I was like, okay, this is it. This is for me. I had no idea the impact it was going to have, but that was just God always putting something in my path and taking care of, really.
That's awesome. And I will never forget your birthday. It is my wedding anniversary.
Oh, nice. Mhm.
Yes, October
Okay,
15th. Great day.
good. Yeah.
Now, your novels often feature characters, very diverse characters, which I love,
Mhm.
overcoming significant challenges. So, your personal experiences with difficulty and challenge, having,
Mhm.
muscular dystrophy, has that played
Yeah.
a role in, how you want to shape your characters?
Definitely. My characters always start with emotion. And for me, all of them are longing because it's a romance. They're all longing for love and acceptance, right? And that's what I too am longing for. So I always start with the emotion. I've actually only written about three characters with disabilities because that's the other thing. I am disabled. Doesn't mean I want to write about it all the time.
Mm,
But when I do write about characters who have disabilities, and honestly, it wasn't a thing, right? In romances for the last like 50 years, disability wasn't even really wanted. Now we want it because of DEI, and then now we don't want it
right.
anymore because of DEI. Like it's like make up your mind. But diversity will never go away, no matter what
That's right.
people are trying to do to it. But so I didn't really always do that because I lived it. I don't want to then write about it, and it's harder than you think to write about it because I have a story that's 10 years old. Is about a woman in a wheelchair, and this is the first book I'm writing about where actual woman is in a wheelchair, like me. Other stories I've written about someone with a heart condition and someone with vitiligo that, like Michael Jackson
Yep.
had. So they've been kind of a far off from me, but I really am hoping in the next year or so to finish this story about a woman who does use a wheelchair. It's just so much more complex logistically to
Mm,
write about because so many books I've read, they don't quite get the disability life right. It's getting better, but like disability and the children, if you have children and you're trying to have a relationship, they conveniently disappear, right? So, and the disability in a lot of books I've read conveniently disappear when it's time for, different things. So it's like, no, this is a part of who you are. It's a part of me. I can't just put my wheelchair in the closet. I need that. That is a piece of technology that I have to use 16 hours a day. Really, I'm up for like 16 hours a day
yeah.
in my chair. So, so I think that you want to get it right, and I have to remember that it's one experience, and we can't be everything to all people. And then just hitting close to home
Yeah.
about, this person. People already think all your books are about you, or, there's something about, is this your story? Like, no, this is made up. It's fiction. Piece of my heart is in there, but it's not
Right.
like my story. And this kind of would almost be, except for the success in the relationship department, but everything else would be kind of my experience. And that can really that you have to really be mature, I think, to write about that.
It takes a lot of, I would imagine, a lot of, introspective work too. And
Yeah.
you're right. I like how you mentioned that it's not, it's one person's experience.
Right.
And it's not,
Mhm.
sometimes if you're in a certain group of people, and enter any group, whether it's women, whether it's people of color, they think that one person's experience could
Mhm.
speak for everyone. And it's like,
Right.
you really can't, because I grew
Mhm.
up in a seaside
Right.
rural community in Rhode Island.
Mhm.
Not the same experience as a lot of other Black people. So
Right,
it's
right.
hard to say, like, and this is, Regina's experience is everyone's. It's like, no, it's not
Mhm.
everyone's, but it is mine and it is
Yes,
valid. So it's,
right.
I like that you mentioned that yes, you can make a story like that, but it is going to be representative of
Mhm.
this one person's experience in this
Yes.
situation.
Yeah. Mhm. And readers need to be a little bit more forgiving sometimes when they find something that they think, even in one of my books that kind of happened. And what I do, I read my reviews and I think about could I have done something different? And I don't automatically, I used to, as a young person, get a little offended, like, what do you mean? But
Mhm.
now I read them and I think about that person's experience. Like I wrote about a character with the Villa and she put on makeup that almost made her appear white to her she's a school teacher and so the love interest is one of the children's fathers. So he assumes that she's white and doesn't understand why she's doing a Black History Month program. And one of the people wrote on the review accusing me of colorism. And I just didn't I wasn't mad at them at all because that's
Mm,
their interpretation.
right.
And I also gave them grace about maybe they had a bad experience. What I was saying is that she and the character was burned in a fire,
Oh,
which burned
wow.
her skin. And so the only makeup had to be light to match some of the other discoloration. And so I felt like the reader couldn't really see that, but I didn't have issue with that. I thought about like, how could I have changed that to make it a little bit more sensitive? Did I
Mm,
need to make it more sensitive, or was that person in their feelings because they had an experience where they didn't like that? And I think it was that I talked about how this character, her name is Tish, she looked at her siblings and wished for their coloring. And that's like
mm,
because she was burned, right?
yeah,
She didn't wish for it because God gave her, something else, but she had a beautiful complexion before she was burned. So now she had comparisonitis and loathed, how her skin turned out as a result of the burn.
yeah,
So even though that reader couldn't really see that, to me, that was still a valid and real reaction that somebody would have. Like,
yeah,
I would love, if I were burned, I would look at somebody's honey skin and kind of want that
yeah,
and not have to go through the ritual of using so much makeup and trying to make myself up. And plus, I'm teaching little kids who can be little hellions, as far as bullying, being
extremely
mean, or
judgmental and very
extremely,
bold.
yes, yes, and
Nothing will
unaware.
keep you honest like a little kid's comments, right?
So and she's coping with that as a character, and the other thing is fiction. Come on, readers, it's
Right.
fiction. Before you write those bad reviews, really think about it, Get mad because Ariel's, Black. Like, really? Okay, I understand, but God, give me a break.
The fictional characters, right? How we go
Exactly.
crazy about
Fictional characters.
fictional
Yes.
and never gonna happen characters. Like, oh, are we
Yeah.
arguing about a half fish? Okay, that's wonderful. Just making sure I'm
Yes.
clear
Yeah.
on what
A
we're fighting
mermaid.
about.
Ooh. They had problem with who she was playing it, but not that she was a mermaid, and that's completely crazy too.
It's like the all women Ghostbusters. Everyone lost their mind on that. My childhood is ruined. I'm like, we need to discuss your childhood if that's what's ruining it. So
Yes.
you're also a writing coach.
Yeah.
So as you were saying, like now you're more mature. Now you kind of can see things through different lenses. Do you think that's been honed by your help with other writers and, you know, the tools that you help with them? Can you tell me a little bit about your coaching?
Sure. Sure. My coaching was really born out of another need, another God, revealed need. I taught for 15 years at a community college, a college that I actually went to get my liberal arts degree before I transferred to a 4-year university. And so after the 6 weeks of my how to write the novel course was over, people were like upset that like this is ending. I don't have accountability. I don't have a set time. And God was like, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So, I met with a lot of them after the class was over privately where they would pay me. And so it was just a way for me to help them keep going. And I have over 30, published students that I personally worked with and helped them to publish their book. But my coaching is just born that I love teaching. I
Mm.
love teaching. I love talking, period. But I love teaching others to find joy in, writing a book. I really believe that everybody should write a book. And even if it never sees the light of day, you've written something and stuck to it for you. At the end of the day, it's about you, routines, and discipline. So many people have these stories buried in a box,
Hmm.
in the attic, in a, getting gathering dust, and I just want everyone to finish at least one book, even if they have no desire to publish it or get it edited. So I just pride myself in my own work ethic as far as my books are concerned. And I want to help others to write their stories, tell the stories of their heart. And I just stay abreast of everything writing related in order to do that. So the coaching was kind of born out of a void that my students had. And then, just doing lots of workshops, presentations. There's a writing summit this weekend. It's 4 days. It ends tomorrow. I did a workshop for that. And just, it's so fun. Like that was another way for me to find my voice. And one of my favorite scriptures, by the way, is the parable of the talents.
Mm.
I've taken one talent that God gave me, and I feel like I have multiplied it. I've been paid for writing grants, obviously paid for teaching and coaching, and writing the books was a single thing that I kind of parlayed into all these other things. So I think that will always be like my favorite scripture of, God's going to be asking you, what did you do with the talent that I gave you?
That's right.
Right? Like, did you bury it in the ground, in the earth? Or you could at least put it in the bank so it can gain interest. So he gave me that and I've used that. It's like I'm milking this cow, Lord. Thank you. I'm going to do everything I possibly can with it. I'm like bubblegum shrimp, fried shrimp, shrimp,
Yes.
gumbo,
Great.
shrimp po' boy. I like that's how I feel about writing.
So, looking ahead
Shrimp
in your
scampi.
writing, do you think there are any new genres, themes, or projects that you're looking to explore further?
Absolutely. I think that writers should not be beholden to one genre. I've already written, romantic suspense. I've written the self-help. I wrote a couple. I'm writing a devotional. I also have an Etsy store, but I hope to write a play. So that'll be. I have like 2 pages of a play that I've been writing forever. It's actually called This Writer's Life, and it's about a woman. It's very autobiographical. She's kind of stuck at this job where she has no upward mobility, and these characters come to visit her at the office. So she's running around trying to, they're like, tell my story. And they just make her life, kind of crazy. It's like the foreigner meets like 9 to 5 or something like that. But, how she's going through trying to write at night, get her stories done. And also, I was in love with the delivery man who was bringing my contracts. I actually knew him. He went to like a sister church of my dad's, and he worked for FedEx. So he used to be like this contract. And so in the play, there'll be this like UPS Brown, this man, what can Brown do for
Right.
you? Right. So he's gonna bring her little contracts, and then there'll be like a little love story between them. And so, just me living vicariously through my character. She'll finally write her book, obviously, and she'll also get rid of this horrible boss, that has been riding her. And there's a point where she ends up in a little insane asylum. And like this is also like the black woman's story. The boss comes to the insane asylum, brings a laptop and said, I'm just having problems with this one little PowerPoint. Can you please help me? Like that is our experience. Like I am sick and dying, and you're bringing me something like I can't wait for it to unfold
That
in
is
the
so real.
thing. But yeah, it's
So
so
real.
real. We are like we're sick and we're taking our PTO and you're calling us or emailing us about something that you need and we're gonna help you.
Right.
But but she's gonna have her characters kind of be advocates for her, like make the boss crazy and run out of the insane asylum, like leave her alone. She's done enough for you. She's resting. So,
Okay, this sounds
you know,
amazing, and I'm gonna need you to finish that.
I don't need to finish it.
Absolutely gonna need you to finish that. So
It's
what
hard.
it
Writing
is
a play is
hard.
so much harder. My gosh.
Structurally, it's so different too, and
It
the
is.
way
That's
that
the problem.
you can't like in a novel, you're able to see what
You
someone's
can't.
thinking.
Right,
Or
right.
in a play, you have to convey all of that verbally or through body language. It's
Mhm.
it's
Dialogue.
right. It's gotta
Yeah,
all you can't just explain it in a paragraph before or after. The
right,
dialogue
right.
has to all
And
make
that's why
sense.
it's so hard.
So that
Yes,
is really
yes,
hard.
totally.
So what advice would you give a new writer, a person who's like, I think I have a story to tell? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I would tell them to finish it, finish the story and get around other writers. Writing is such an isolating endeavor. And you really need people. When you're writing, you get in your own head that this is trash and, this is not any good. And you really need almost like critique partners or beta readers. You really need it earlier than people do it. Most
Mm,
people finish the entire book and then it goes to beta readers and then it goes to editors. You really need people, other writers to read and critique a little bit to help you really hone your craft and to tell you this is really good. The other thing that I didn't mention was that in that time in college, one of my, white, older male English teachers, I think I forget what class it was in college. He questioned why I had written a certain character and made them white. Right. I mostly do write about African Americans, but just for the class, I happened to write about a white chick. And so for him to question was first of all wrong, but as a, 20 something, you're not going to question or rebuff your professor. You're
right.
just going to be like, okay, dude, sorry, that's what I wanted to write. He shouldn't have questioned me about that. It was my prerogative to do whatever I want. It was a writing assignment. But that just gets into you and makes you doubt yourself. And
Mm,
so you really need people. And that's the other thing. That's the other rejection. It was like four rejections that I mentioned, the struggling with the academics, the rejection of relationships, and a couple, other things. And coping with my disability too is been no joke as I get older. But you need people to encourage you. So try to find a critique partner or a little writing group. Even if you only get to submit twice a year, which usually happens, that's the only drawback about some critique groups is your chance only comes around every six
mm.
months. But at least you have that. And there are other ways. People are talking about love it, hate it, chat GPT. I've put some of my writing in there, asked it to, and chat GPT is an honest little annoying little something honest, annoying little heifer sometimes, and kind of snarky too.
Can be,
But that
yes.
is good for you because, yeah, because it'll tell you, the prompt I use is, please, critique this and offer some helpful ways to improve upon it. And the other thing to remember is not get in your feelings. Think about you have a product at the end of the day. If you're looking for a
Right.
book deal, this is a product. This is not your baby. Yes, when I open my books, when I get them in the mail, I'm like, oh, you're so cute. I love you. I love you. And I coo at my books and hold them like children in my arms and rock them because I'm so proud of my accomplishment. Another one done. But at the end of the day, they're not. They should not be that close to you. You should be looking at them more from a business standpoint.
In the movies, there is a phrase, and it's such a horrible phrase, but it's a phrase that really makes you understand how
Mhm.
sometimes things have to go. And the
Yes,
phrase is sometimes you have to kill your children.
that's right.
And,
That's right.
filmmakers, they'll film a whole lot of stuff and you want to use all that stuff. But at the end of the day, even
Yeah.
something that you love, if it's not
Mhm.
driving your story forward, It
Right.
has to go, and it'll be
You know,
painful and it'll be awful, but you
it will.
have to let it go. And you have to
Yes,
be willing to let it go.
you do. You have to be ruthless. It's hard. You have to be willing to even start over, start from scratch. I've only lost one book, and that was when I was like migrating from like a PC to a Mac or something like that. But I was okay. I had to make peace with it. It ended up in some kind of, purgatory wherever Microsoft documents go, to die and never be seen again. But it forces you to really reconcile and to say, I can write even better. Like, it's gonna be better next time. I don't recommend people losing things, randomly, but it just teaches you, like, it
Mm.
almost makes you a little bit tougher. You can do this over again, and it's going to be even better because that first one was just a practice. And, of course, now you back up everything and you use Google to, back up stuff. They have free storage. You should be using it.
So, where can people find out more about you? And I'll have this all in the show notes.
Sure. They can. I'm mostly active on Instagram at my full name, Tracee Lydia Garner. I'm on X, but also my website, which is just my name, traceegarner.com, two E's, if you please. And all my books are on Amazon and other online retailers, but all of them are on Amazon for sure.
Tracee, this has been outstanding. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming on Well and Grace today. I think
Sure.
we've learned a lot about writing. We've learned a lot about your process.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Regina. Yeah.
And grace for every heart, refreshing souls are set apart. Come to the well, receive His light, living water, endless life.